His silence was the loudest thing in the room, not the rustle of ancient drapes, not the fire cracking in its stone hearth, not even the slow, deliberate beat of my own heart trying to convince me this wasn't happening. But it was. He was standing there, shadow and heat incarnate, watching me like a decision he'd already made. I should have run, but the bond thrummed beneath my skin, pulling me toward him like gravity had shifted, like my center had moved from within me to him. "I can feel you," I said, voice hoarse with something that wasn't quite fear, something closer to hunger. His eyes darkened. "That's the point." I stepped back, but the space behind me narrowed with every inhale. The walls felt too close, the flickering light too intimate, like the entire room had folded in on itself to trap us in this moment. The air smelled of ash and cedar and something else. Him. That scent I'd started to recognize in the dark, the one that clung to the inside of my thoughts. "Then shut it off," I whispered. A flicker of something moved across his expression. Not pity, not cruelty, restraint. "I can't," he said softly. "Not anymore." And the way he said it made something inside me break open. He moved then, not fast, not slow, just inevitable. Like a storm rolling over the sea, deliberate and final. He stopped a breath away, and I felt every inch of him without him even touching me. Heat coiled low in my belly, rising sharp and treacherous like wine poured too fast. My throat worked. "This bond isn't the reason I want you." His voice was a rasp, scraping against something raw inside me. "But it is the reason you can no longer lie to yourself." I should have slapped him, or screamed, or begged. But I did none of that. Instead, I just stood there and trembled. He reached for me with one hand, not to grab, just to feel. His fingertips hovered over my cheek, the back of his knuckles ghosting over my skin until my breath caught. "You burn," he murmured. "Even when you pretend to be ice." I hated the way my knees weakened at his words. Hated that part of me, deep, aching, secret, wanted him to see through me like that. My voice shook. "You don't get to do this." "I already am." And then his mouth was on mine. No warning, no demand, just fire. It wasn't soft. It wasn't gentle. It was hunger restrained by the thinnest thread. A slow burn explosion dragged out in a single exhale. One kiss that swallowed every reason I had left to fight. His hand slid to the back of my neck, holding me there like he knew I'd fall if he let go. My lips parted, and his breath rushed into me like smoke from a forbidden altar. Everything else disappeared. The veil, the past, the voice in my head that said I should pull away. All gone, only him, only this. The kiss deepened, his tongue brushing mine with sinful precision, coaxing, teasing, claiming, until I felt myself dissolve. My hands curled into his shirt, desperate and shaking. And still he didn't rush. He kissed me like it was a sacred act. Like my mouth held all the answers to questions neither of us could ask out loud. When he finally pulled back, it wasn't because the fire had cooled. It was because it had gotten too hot, too dangerous. We stood there, panting, eyes locked, my lips tingled, swollen with want and shock. The space between us felt scorched. "You kissed me," I breathed, as if I hadn't been part of it, as if I hadn't kissed him back with everything I didn't dare say. "I did," he said, "and I will again." His voice was low but steady, a promise, not a threat. I swallowed the knot rising in my throat. "Why now?" "Because," he said, brushing his thumb across my lower lip, "I needed you to stop pretending you don't feel this." I wanted to argue, scream, push him away just to prove I still could. But all I did was close my eyes and taste him again on my tongue. The silence between us stretched, dense with everything we didn't say. I hadn't moved, couldn't. My body still hummed from the way his mouth had claimed mine, like a secret finally dragged into the light. I should have felt shame, regret, something sharp enough to cut through the warmth curling inside me. But all I felt was his absence. He'd stepped back only an inch, maybe 2, but it felt like a chasm had opened between us, and he was watching me again, gaze hooded, jaw tense, like he was holding something back with teeth and sheer will alone. I hated how much I wanted to close the space again. "I shouldn't have done that," he said, but his voice was rough, betraying the lie. "You meant to." "Yes." He took another breath. It sounded like it hurt. "But I shouldn't have." A war churned inside me, part of me screaming to lash out, to reclaim control, the other part desperate to chase the heat he'd left behind. "You talk like you regret it," I said, forcing the tremor from my voice. His eyes found mine, and the way he looked at me. No one had ever looked at me like that. Like he saw all the fractures and still wanted to press his mouth to the edges. Like he wanted to bleed with me. "I regret everything that's made you afraid of wanting it too." The words shattered something inside me. He turned before I could respond, hands bracing the mantle like he needed grounding. Like if he didn't hold something, he might break it instead. The firelight made shadows ripple across his back, muscles flexing beneath his shirt, jaw set like stone. The space filled with the smell of smoke and tension and the raw edge of restraint. He was giving me time to walk away, but I didn't. I moved to him instead, slow, unsure, drawn by a thread I hadn't asked for and couldn't break. I stopped just behind him, close enough to feel the heat radiating off his body, close enough to breathe him in. "Why did it feel like that?" I whispered. "Like the world stopped moving." He didn't look at me, because it did. I hated him for saying it, hated how my heart clutched at the answer like it was hope wrapped in barbed wire. "I'm not yours," I said, voice barely audible. "No," he agreed, "but you're not anyone else's either." I closed my eyes, the truth settling heavy in my chest. That was the worst part. I didn't belong to anyone, not even myself anymore. The bond shifted beneath my skin, not painful, but present. A pulse, a tether. I could feel him, Eric's, even when I tried not to. My fingers brushed the sleeve of his coat, light enough to be accidental. He stilled. "You want to know what scares me?" I asked, my voice low, too raw to stop now. He didn't answer, but his silence said yes. It's not that you kissed me. It's that I wanted you to. He turned then, slowly. His gaze raked over my face like he was memorizing it or unraveling it. His voice dropped, rougher than before. Say that again. I wanted you to, I repeated, barely breathing. I still do. Something broke in him at those words, sharp, dangerous, unspoken. He stepped closer, crowding me back until my spine met the wall. But this time I didn't feel trapped. I felt anchored. His hands braced beside my head, his chest so close I could feel the heat rolling off him in waves. His breath ghosted over my lips as he leaned in, speaking just above a whisper. I could ruin you right here. I know. I want to. I know. He exhaled slowly, jaw tight. But I won't. The disappointment that bloomed inside me should have shamed me. It didn't. I'm not fragile, I said, chin tilted. You think that's what I'm protecting? He leaned closer, his lips brushing the shell of my ear. I'm protecting me, Nyra. The sound of my name, his voice wrapped around it like silk and steel, lit something molten inside me. It rolled through my body like thunder, down to the tips of my fingers, curling into my toes. I've waited lifetimes for someone like you, he murmured. And I will not shatter that too soon. I should have pushed him away. I should have run from what that meant. Instead, I reached up, my fingers threading into the dark strands at the base of his neck. Then stop pretending you're immune to me. He laughed, low, dark, broken. I'm not even close. His mouth hovered over mine again, not quite touching but daring me to close the distance. I didn't. I let the ache stretch, let it burn. Because this wasn't about kissing anymore. This was about control. And the terrifying realization that I wanted to give mine up. The silence between us snapped like tensioned thread, thin, stretched too far, too long. His mouth hovered just over mine, breath warm, head bowed like he was trying to hold himself together with that last sliver of restraint. But I could feel the tremor in him, the way his hands braced against the wall on either side of my head, not to cage me, to anchor himself. I didn't dare move. One breath and this would ignite. Still, I whispered, then do it. Shatter it. A growl rumbled from his chest, low and guttural, and before I could take another breath, his mouth was on mine, hot, punishing, claiming. This wasn't the gentle, searing kiss from before. This was possession. His body pressed to mine, flush and unyielding, every inch of him a wall of tension and heat. His tongue slid against mine with a hunger that tasted like withheld promises, like rage twisted into desire. I moaned into his mouth, fingers clutching at the collar of his coat, desperate to pull him closer, to feel all of him, everywhere. But even as he kissed me like I was the last truth he believed in, his hands never touched me. Still braced above me, still holding back. No, I gasped against his mouth, frustration slicing through the pleasure. Don't you dare restrain yourself now. His head dropped to my shoulder, breath ragged, teeth gritted against control. "If I touch you," he growled, voice scraping like gravel, "I won't stop." "Then don't." He snapped then. One hand dropped to my throat, not squeezing, just holding. Thumb pressed to the pulse leaping beneath my skin. The other gripped my hip, pulling me against him so hard I felt every hard line of him, every silent promise his body had been aching to make. My breath stuttered. His eyes burned into mine. "I warned you," he said, voice pitched low and brutal. "I warned you what I was." I swallowed. And I still opened the door. He stared at me like he wanted to tear me apart or worship me on his knees. Then he kissed me again. Slower this time, but deeper, possessive. A claiming sealed in velvet and teeth. His fingers dug into my hip, holding me like I was the edge of a cliff and he was dangling by a thread. And God's help me, I wanted to fall with him. The bond between us pulsed again, no longer subtle. My skin flushed hot, every nerve flaring like it had been kissed by fire. Shadows swirled behind my eyes, not frightening, but familiar. Eric's broke the kiss with a hiss, pulling back just far enough to meet my eyes. "It's reacting to us." "The bond?" My voice was barely there. He nodded once. "It's sinking." A pause. My breath caught. "Does that mean—" "Yes," he said, jaw tight. What's between us, it's no longer dormant." A rush of heat flooded my chest and spine. Something primal shifted inside me, like the deepest part of me had stirred, stretching into him, through him. My voice trembled. "Then it's begun." He gave a dark nod. "There's no turning back now." A beat passed, then softer, almost reverently. "You've always been mine, Nyra." This only confirms what the veil already knew. I stared at him, heart in my throat, unable to speak. Because somewhere in the tangle of shadow and flame that had erupted between us, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't sure I wanted to turn back. I wanted the bond. I wanted him. Even if it meant ruin. Even if it meant I'd never belong to myself again. Eric's hand slipped from my throat, trailing down to rest over my heart. His eyes never left mine, and I knew. He felt it pounding, wild and terrified and alive beneath his palm. "Soon," he said. "Not tonight, but soon." I wanted to scream. I wanted to beg. Instead, I nodded, because even that promise, soon, felt like a blade pressed to skin, sharp, barely restrained, and oh gods, how I wanted it to cut.